Braveheart Workshops, inspiring connection. Restore, renew, and reconnect in community. Live well, laugh often, love much. Join our online connection circles. Be empowered in our virtual live events. Be a guest on our podcast shows. Hire us or be hired for speaking engagements. Enhance hope, health, and healing in your lives. Creating global connections. The Connection Show, sponsored by Braveheart Workshops, live with Jill Reynolds. The Connection Show, inspiring hope, health, and healing in 2021. Sponsored by Braveheart Workshops and live with Jill Reynolds from Branson, Missouri. And joining me today is Dotty Scott. Welcome to the show, Dotty.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we're just honored you could come. Where are you joining us from, Dotty?
Vancouver, Washington, Jill.
The beautiful northwest of our country.
Yes, you can't beat it in the summer.
Well, amazing. Well, I'd love the audience to know just a little bit about Dotty, so I'm going to read your bio.
Okay.
Dotty Scott is the owner of Premium Websites, LLC. She's a website designer, a social media expert, a speaker, and a trainer. She is entering her 16th year of business and has expanded each year with over a 35% growth in 2020. Dotty is an award-winning website designer. Premium Websites was awarded the 2011-20 Top 25 Web Hosting and Design Companies by the Vancouver Business Journal. Dotty believes in treating every customer as an individual, believing that there are no cookie-cutter answers or generic websites created at Premium Websites. She goes the extra mile to make sure that every client is happy, and she loves to teach small business owners how to get from where they are to where they want to be. Well, amazing, Dotty, and I can give a testimony of your love and abilities to those, because when I was having troubles, you gave me some phenomenal advice and direction. So thank you for joining us.
Oh, you are most welcome.
Well, Dotty, on the Connection Show, we're not like the typical podcast show where we dive deep into business. We connect story. And so part of connecting story, I believe, is taking a story of your life and connecting it so that people listening will be inspired not only by your story, but within their own lives they can connect some of the dots. Because I do believe, Dotty, in life that our stories are mirrors to others. And when we take the time to look for similarities in each other's lives instead of differences, there's so much hope, health, and healing in the world. And so if you're willing, would you take us on a journey on little Dotty and what it was like growing up in your life, and share with us transparently whatever you feel you're willing to share, and then how it's led you to the beautiful woman you've become today?
Sure. That's a many-faceted question there. But the little Dotty grew up in a very rural town out in the middle of nowhere, and had 4 siblings. So I'm the youngest of 4 kids. The 2 oldest are 8 and 6 years older than me. Then there's a big gap, and then myself and another sister. And the other sister, we were 2 years apart. She actually passed away when she was 8. And she had been sick with cancer for 2 years prior to that. So my experience growing up, even though I had siblings, I was really mostly a single child, an only child. And because of the age difference, once she passed, there were teenagers and I was this little kid, so they don't want to have anything to do with me. But you ask about how things you know, as a child, what that plays into for how I am today. And I as a kid growing up, I never thought anything about it, but it's one of those things where I watched for 2 years my sisters suffer, and I am sure that that is where my belief in alternative healing comes from, where my anti-belief in traditional medicine comes from, and all of that. I tell myself if I ever get cancer, I will never do chemo, never do radiation. I'm not going to do that. And I'm sure that's where that comes from. And also being a only child and living out in the boondocks, in the summertime, you don't get to walk down the street and go visit your friend or anything like that. You're like literally by yourself. And my parents both worked. And so during the summertime, summer break, I was literally left to myself to entertain myself and figure out what to do and, whatever, which this day and age would be shocking that a child would be raised that way. But it taught me how to be very independent. It taught me how to be okay with myself and how to entertain myself, and not rely on other people. And all of those things, even though, back then it was just the way life was, they have all helped contribute to who I am today and how I'm able to be a self-employed person and be okay with myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
It's if you're running your own business, you wear all the hats, at least in the beginning, until you're able to afford to either get employees or outsource some pieces and that. And for me, I sit in my home, I work at a computer, and I don't go crazy. And I talk to some other people, they're like, oh my God, I couldn't do what you do because I can't be alone. And I'm thinking,
Now,
it's just in my DNA.
yeah. Now, are you single, married, divorced, widowed?
I am technically not married, but I am in a committed relationship.
Hmm.
And he's also self-employed
Okay.
and works out of the home.
Okay.
So it's kind of nice because I get all my work done when he's working somewhere else.
Hmm.
So it works out really well. But yeah, it's the way I grew up is not how people grow up today.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I can definitely relate to your story, Daddy, because again, I love connection and the similarity. So my story's similar in as my parents divorced when I was just turning 6. And when they divorced, my mother started to work evenings. And so we were lockheed children from the moment we'd get home from school, tuck ourselves into bed. So I went from having parents, my father especially was a very strong Catholic, and he'd kneel with us and say prayers at night and read us our books and tuck us in bed and give us the hugs and kisses. So when he was out of the house, we still saw him on Sunday. The rest of the week, we were pretty much on our own to fend for ourselves and make our own meals and tuck ourselves into bed and figure out, how to do
Yep.
those things. And so I too, like you, just learned that's how life was. And when you're a child and you're in that type of an environment, you just think that's how life is.
It's normal.
It's normal to us because we don't know what abnormal looks like.
Right. I mean, school would get out at like 2:20-ish, somewhere in there, and most kids would walk home. They'd go to their friend's house. They'd do whatever. I got on a bus and I got home at 4:30. So there's this whole, time where you're missing all the socialization and all of that you learn as a kid. And I get home at 4:30 and my parents get home at 5:30-ish. So like you, latchkey kid, which I don't even think that was a word back then. but but and you learn how to deal with yourself, and you learn how to do. It's like I knew what I had to get done, especially when it came to school, and I would just do it. And I've come to realize that that's now called self-motivation.
Yeah.
And when you own your own business, you have to be motivated to do what you have to get done. And if you're not self-motivated, who's going to motivate you?
Exactly. Well, even with your story, Dotty, sorry, I got a little hoarse there. With your story, if you can take us back, because again I love connecting dots. My husband was married previous, and he has 5 kids, and his oldest son was born with, which they didn't know until he was 12, was born with multiple brain tumors that were not
Mm.
malignant, benign, but it required lots and lots of care because of his brain tumors causing a lot of rage and scary things, and then having surgery after surgery on his brain over the years. And so I bring that up because, going back to your sister, his siblings that were younger, because he was the oldest, had to be left with other neighbors and family
Mhm.
members, and there was quite a bit of time that those children didn't get the attention. So, what was it like then, being raised with 4 kids, you close to your sister, sister gets sick, and mom and dad need to spend all their time and energy with the sick child? And what was that like for you then, of again, not having the space to be, and I hate to use the word cared for, because our parents do the best they can with what they have, but really kind of almost neglected because your attention has to go to the sick child. Did that play
Um,
out in your
you know,
family?
I never thought of it as neglected, but the thing that was big in our family, so we lived in a small town in southeastern Washington. And at the time, so this was the mid, early to mid 70s. My parents had to drive my sister to Seattle, which was probably back then, probably about a 7-hour drive.
Mm.
And there was one hospital that served the whole state when it came to children's major illnesses. In fact, I think it's even still there. This was also during the gas crisis in the 70s, if you remember that. And so whenever she had a surgery, and I think she had 3 over the course of 2 years, and whenever she was given radiation, and I don't remember how often that was, they would drive to Seattle, and we would stay with family friends. And I honestly don't recall that we all stayed at the same place, because I remember staying with a family who had another child that was about my age. And I think my brother and sister must have gone off to places that had kids. There's probably friends of theirs, parents of friends of theirs or something. Um, and so we would spend weeks living at another family's house. But again, we didn't look at that as a bad thing. For me, I'm great. Oh my gosh, I've got somebody to play with.
Yeah.
That's really what I looked at it as. I don't know
Hmm.
how they saw it,
Yeah.
so that was a good thing. And then, as far as being at home, um, I don't really recall there ever being any animosity or hard feelings or anything towards my parents, about all of that. We just, rode with the bumps, did what we
Hmm.
had to do.
What was it like for you though, going through, I'm so sorry, my voice, going through the loss though, watching, I know when my father's mother passed away, my dad was in his 20s, and he had to go there every day and be with his mom who had breast cancer that spread to the bone. And he said it was just some of the most difficult times in his life. Do you have recollection of what that was like for you as a little girl watching your own sister?
I was horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really can't talk about it.
Yeah, yeah, I understand. Yeah. I can't even imagine what you went through as a little girl. I just lost my sister in September from pancreatic cancer, and she only had 12 weeks to live. And I'll have episodes like all of a sudden on my computer I've got my screensaver and I've got a second computer, and all of a sudden I'll look over and she'll flash on the screen and I'll go like, oh, I really miss Gwenny Bush. And unfortunately my dad died 2 days after her, so they but the two people in my life that I was the closest to, my sister and my dad, all 2 days apart. So it's, yeah, I get those moments, trust me, Daddy, and it's like, oh, it's so hard, isn't it?
It is.
It,
It's still hard.
yeah, yeah, and it will be. I mean, life is tough. Nobody ever said life would be easy. If you think you're going to get through it, but
Oh,
the good news is we know there's hope, don't we? There's
we do.
hope, and there is health in the world, and there is healing of our souls. It just sometimes I think just connecting with our rawness helps us to really embrace the things in life we do have, doesn't it?
It does. And I will say that everything that I did experience as a child, it made me not so a lot of kids, at least when I was growing up, they seem to have this idea that they are invincible, and they would do things that I just kind of looked at them like, gosh, that was really dumb. Why'd you do that? And I grew up knowing that isn't true. You know what I mean? So, I was able to, it was almost like a filter that I had in my mind. And I mean, I wasn't like conscious of this at all in any way. But as an adult thinking back on it, I filtered and did not do all of the really stupid things that other kids did that, they would get hurt and they'd break their legs, whatever, all just dumb things. And I kind of bypassed that because I I knew then and I know now that there is a date and time that everybody has where their life here will be done.
Hmm.
And you can't get out of it. It is what it is. I
Yeah,
also
I don't think
know,
there's one thing we could all be assured of is we will die.
yes,
That's
yes, exactly.
no matter how hopeful you are in life, if you can't grasp the fact that one day you will die, and do you cherish the moments that you have here on earth? And it sounds to me like, from what you shared so far, it sounds to me like you were really able to grow up and embrace life.
I was, and I did. And I still embrace life now, but I do look forward to the day that I will meet up with her again.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you for that vulnerability, because we do have we have a conference coming to Branson, Hope, Health, and Healing, and one amazing young man, he was in an AV accident that this woman was driving drunk, and he flew off of the AV, and he wasn't even drinking, and she left him on the side of the road for dead for 3 hours, and he went to heaven. And he shares his story about when he went to heaven, his mother had had a miscarriage before he was born. And he goes, it was amazing. I went to heaven and met my sister, and we ran into each other's arms, and she looks just like my mom. And he said it was so cool to meet her. And
I believe that
yeah,
because I too had I call it a near death experience. And when it happened to me, I I couldn't see anything. I didn't actually die. It was really just near death. And everything was white, but I could hear. And I could hear really like a lot of voices really loudly yelling, go back, go back. It's not your time, go back, which I did, obviously. But I know that there's something there and it's just waiting for the right time.
hmm, Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, his name was the boy's name is Christian Mayberry, and they're actually
Mhm.
writing they're doing a motion picture on him called Pray for Mayberry, and
That'll be a good one to watch.
yeah, he's just he's so cool. He's so cool. See, everybody's got to come to Branson just to hear him speak. He's just so sweet. And he said that when he went to heaven, Jesus asked him, "Do you want to stay, Christian, or should I send you back?" And he goes, "I think I need to go back to my mom and dad because they're going to be really sad." And Jesus said, "Well, then go back and spread this to thousands of people." And Christian's response was, "Jesus, why thousands? Why not millions?" So
There you
I
go.
I think his motion picture will go out to millions. But that's amazing. So then tell us a little bit. So you grow up and you're doing life, and how did you lead yourself into the work that you do today, Dottie?
Well, I after high school, I went to Seattle and I went to the Art Institute of Seattle and I took their photography course. And I had planned on being a photographer. After I went through that course, I worked for different types of photographers, trying to figure out what I wanted to do, from people that did little rings to huge cars to weddings and portraits and all of this stuff. I even worked for one that would go to the mall and set up and take a picture after you get like this makeover at Macy's or someplace. Um, and I was in my 20s and I realized two things. I did not yet have people skills, probably because I was on my own all growing up.
Yep.
So
Connect those dots, right?
that's right. I acquired those later. And the other thing is I was having a really hard time focusing the camera. And it was before digital focus really worked. Well, it was before digital cameras at all. They had autofocus on some, but it was really iffy. And I went and got glasses for the first time in my life. And I realized that this was probably not the right path for me because my eyesight is just going to get worse and worse and worse as I age. And photography just wasn't it. So I bailed on that, saying, as you grow up and you're doing something, if you come into too much push, maybe it's not the right choice. So I just bailed on it. Went through life a little bit longer, kind of flailing and not really finding my path, and had my daughter and realized that I wanted to be in control of raising my daughter. I didn't want to have to ask a boss if I could get off early and go watch school sports or whatever, because I mean was a very active child. So I wanted to find something I could do working from home. Did not want to do network marketing, which is what everybody was trying to tell me to do. And it's not that I don't believe in that business model. I actually really do. I think it's a great business model. It's just that I've seen a lot of companies come and go. And I wanted, again, that control. And you don't have control if that's your only source of income. So I looked at what I liked and I decided I was going to build websites. And I taught myself how to do it.
Well, that's an amazing story. I love that. Were you I wasn't, so I don't know if you want to share this or not. So I'll just say that I was in case you were. I was a single, never married mom for 17 years. Were you single or when you had your
No, I
children?
was married when
Okay.
she was born,
Okay.
and I was divorced by the time she was 2
Hmm.
because her dad felt that he was more important
Okay.
than raising her.
Okay. So then you raised her the majority of her life by yourself.
Yes.
Yes, okay, yeah. And it does make a difference because, I think, I believe single moms or single dads, because there are a lot of single dads out there today too,
Hmm.
believe it or not. Um, I think, I remember having people say to me over the years when he was young, especially when he was younger, oh gosh, it's got to be so hard being a single mom. It must be so. And I remember, it's so funny. I remember looking at him like, I'm either in denial or my truth is my truth. And I looked at him and said, no, it's not, because it's just me and him. And it was really easy because I worked in outside sales, and like you, if I needed to get off work at 3:30 to be at a baseball game, I could just, make my schedule and,
Yeah, you just rearrange things.
I can make sure I made enough sales that I could cut out early. And, because I didn't have a husband, I didn't have anyone that I had to be accountable to. So if I wanted to make dinner, I did. And if I didn't, I'd run through at McDonald's. Not that it was the best food choice, but I could do whatever I wanted to do without the accountability of someone telling me I had to do this, this, and that. So actual single parenting wasn't as hard as everyone made it sound like it was.
Well, and the other great thing about it, at least in my point of view, is that it's it turns more into a community. So if you have a problem, you call somebody for advice, somebody that you already know and respect, whether it be a family member, friend, whoever. I relied on my mom a lot, so my daughter got to know her grandmother very well. Grandpa, for her, or my dad, had passed shortly after she was born, so she never knew him. And it was, although yes, I was raising her mostly alone, it I never looked at it as being alone.
Mm-hmm.
And there was always something there, someone there when I really, really needed it.
Yep. And that's good, because you learned at a certain point of when you needed to ask for help and when you could do it by yourself.
And my daughter learned that there's other people that she can rely on as well.
Yeah. So
It,
lot,
it
lots
really
of
wasn't a
lots
bad thing.
of lots of life lessons, right?
Yes.
That's beautiful. Well, I'm honored to get to know you, Dotty. Your story's amazing, and my heart goes out to you losing your sister at a young age, because my sister, at least she was here till 68, but loss is loss no matter what age, I think. And thanks for your transparency to connect the dots. I would love the audience to know how to find you, so I'm going to put here Dottie's bio. It does have her website on here, Dotty at premiumwebsites.net. And she really is a very, very talented young woman, very affordable, very kind, and very, very intuitive. So if you're at that stage of your business where you need some branding or marketing and website, definitely reach out to Dotty and connect with her. So thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for being on the Connection Show, Dotty. And thank you from the bottom of my heart for helping me when I needed help. And you were so willing to be there for me. So I really am grateful to you myself. So thanks so much for joining us.
You're welcome, Jill.
And audience, we would really be honored if you would consider taking a vacation, getting out of the house and coming to fresh air and beauty in the Ozark Mountains, surrounded by lakes and mountains and theater and just fun in the sun in August. So join us in Branson August 20th to the 22nd for a 3-day event, Hope, Health, and Healing. And the conference is only $84 for 3 days. So we hope that you'll come and be with us in Branson. Thanks again, Dotty, for joining us.
Bye-bye.
Bye now. Thanks for joining us on the Connection Show. Let's connect now. Let's restore, renew, and reconnect in community. Enhance connection in our online connection circles. A place to meet up, gather, and feel welcomed. To join us, go to braveheartworkshops.com. Click on the Books Podcast tab, and then the Connection Circles drop down. On the pop-up, join our Connection Circles Facebook group. Our circles meet from 8 to 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Share story, topics, and laughter with men and women. To learn more about Connection Circles, go to braveheartworkshops.com. Thanks for joining us on the Connection Show, and have a great day.